Formula One is a technology-rich sport, but whenever we talk about the technology that powers it, we're always talking about the cars, the teams, the drivers. We rarely talk about the broadcast side of things. The technology behind Formula One's broadcasting is a technical marvel. So in today's video, I'm going to talk to you about how it all works behind the scenes and how the cloud is used. This is the event technical center behind me, and it serves a really important job in getting the F1 broadcast onto your screens. Around the track here, there are 150 cameras, as well as microphones. There's all the cars that are broadcasting telemetry, and that data, it needs to go somewhere before it can be sent to your phone. And it goes here. So what is the journey that all of the broadcast data takes to get from right here on track to your phone when you're watching the race? It starts off with the broadcast teams here at the ETC and at the MTC working together to create that final broadcast. That's adding all of the insights that you see on screen, deciding which cameras they want to show, etc. Once they've done that, they are then going to use a cloud service to stream that to your phone, because your phone is not going to connect directly to Formula One. And the reason behind that is that setting up all of that broadcast infrastructure is difficult to do. It's also difficult to maintain, and it is very, very expensive. So they use a service called AWS Elemental, and what it does is take that live video content and then stream it to the hundreds of thousands, the millions of people that are watching the race live. Now that is pretty cool. Formula One is known by some as the traveling circus, and I actually think that's a really fitting name considering the amount of equipment that they need to move from circuit to circuit around the world. And with over 20 races every single year, that is a massive logistical challenge that they need to solve. And interestingly, the cloud has been a part of making that easier.
A stadium sport, you have all the infrastructure in there.
Yeah, they can keep it there, can't
they?
The
whole time, they keep it there, and I'm very envious of some of those stadium sports. Whereas we're turning up once a year, we're deploying all our fibre infrastructure, all our scaffolding, our platforms, our cameras, as you said. How do we steal a little bit of that back, really? And actually, what I'm seeing in the last couple of years of that gap between what you can do in a stadium sport to what you can do in a field sport is shrinking.
Okay.
And a lot of that is around cloud. So even in this race, we're testing some systems in the cloud that will possibly be able to generate us some footage that we can then get out to the fan, that deploying this array of kit that we would then have to take down on Sunday night and get to another race, potentially 2 days later,
a huge
would be really difficult.
Just gone, aren't you? Yeah.
Exactly that. So, whether that is cloud, whether there's a bit of edge, compute, using that to deploy some of those services is becoming more important and shrinking that gap to what you can do for a permanent install compared to what we are, which is a very lively install,
So it seems that the cloud isn't necessarily being used to reduce the amount of setup that's taking place on site, but it is being used to increase Formula One's media outputs without necessarily meaning that they have to bring additional infrastructure to the circuit. I suppose if you've already got it and you've got this process that works really well, there's not that much reason to change it. But if you're wanting to add new features to the broadcast, new insights that without the cloud would maybe require more equipment being transported, that is where the inefficiencies and the complexities lie. So using the cloud to bring new technologies and bring new features to the broadcast that previously weren't there is a much more efficient way of doing that.
So now that we've got all of the tech set up on site, that isn't the end of the story. There is still a really complex process that is involved in getting all of the camera feeds, the telemetry, the broadcast from the track to your TV screen.
Now here I'm not just talking about the journey that the data takes from the track to the TV screen, we already discussed that earlier. What I'm talking about is the very specific process of deciding what information is being shown on screen so that the broadcasters are able to make the best TV watching experience possible for the fans. Because with so many different stories unfolding between the different drivers at different points on the track, at different points in the race, an individual broadcast director would need a lot of mental bandwidth to keep up with everything that's going on. But there is a tool that's used to make this easier.
Including the cameras on the cars, there are over 150 cameras recording the race here at the British Grand Prix this weekend. So how does the broadcast team keep track of everything that is going on around the circuit during a live racing environment? Well, one of the tools that I've learned about this weekend is TrackPulse. And what this tool does is it takes a bunch of live data feeds. I'm talking car telemetry, I'm talking weather information, race control messages, as well as camera feeds. And it allows the broadcasters to detect to different stories that are unfolding on track that they perhaps would not have been able to see if they were just watching a video feed. So it's a really useful tool for bringing the broadcast to life.
So far, every use of the cloud that I've talked about has been behind the scenes, and I think that's actually part of the magic, that the viewer doesn't actually see the complexities that are going on behind the scenes. They just see a really high quality broadcast. But there is one fan-facing use case of the cloud that I think every fan already knows about.
If you've been watching Formula One for a while, you will have noticed some significant improvements in the broadcast quality, especially in recent years. And I, as a fan, credit a lot of that to F1 Insights powered by AWS. If you've never watched an F1 broadcast before, they are little insights that appear around the screen to tell you a little bit more about what's going on in the race. Because when you're just looking at the video feed, sometimes it's a little bit hard to understand exactly what's happening. One of my favorite F1 insights is the striking distance insight, which estimates the number of laps it's going to take one driver to catch another. So as a fan, these insights are really useful for understanding what's going on in the race. But from a technical perspective, they are very impressive as well. So let me explain how they work.
All of the tech for these F1 Insights is cloud-based. They take existing data that has already been retrieved by Formula One from the cars, the cameras, the timing system, etc., which they already have running through their systems. The only thing that's actually changing here is the addition of a new cloud-based architecture for the insights that's being bolted on inside of a cloud environment. And this is exactly what Dean was talking about earlier in the video. No additional on-site infrastructure was needed to deploy these insights into the broadcast. The concept of designing an F1 Insight is actually pretty simple. All you need to do is figure out what is the output. For example, on the Battle Forecast Insight, the output is the number of estimated laps that it's going to take one driver to catch another so that they are within 1 second of them. Once you have that output decided, you then need to understand what the inputs for that insight would be in order for you to calculate that output. In this case, that would be the delta of one driver to another on a continuous basis. Delta being the time difference in lap time between two drivers. Of course, that's a very basic example of how you would build an F1 Insight, but they do get much more complicated throughout the 24 different insights that they have built for the broadcast.
When the broadcast stops, the story is not over. If you follow Formula One on social media, you will know that they like to post a lot. So editing all of those posts is a massive challenge for the media team. For example, some of their videos contain different moments throughout the history of Formula One. So if you're a video editor and you wanted to find those individual moments, that's going to be a massive challenge if you have a traditional video footage library. During my conversation with Claire Sparks from Formula One, I was able to ask her a few questions about this video archive.
One of our richest sources of data is our video archive.
Okay.
So we have an archive that dates back to the very first Grand Prix here at Silverstone.
Okay.
We have
That's a long time ago.
A long time ago, 76 years worth of data, 75 in this season's worth of data. So we have a lot. It's now all been digitized, it's now all stored in the cloud, but we have all of that data to use. And one of the challenges that we've had is being able to surface that data for our different audience groups, whether it's for fans, for broadcasters, or for our production teams who are using the content all the time to create highlights, clips, comparisons, tell the story of Formula One over a number of decades. And so one of the other use cases that we have is our video archive, where we use AI to create a model that our production teams can, using natural language, search throughout 75 years worth of video archive to be able to retrieve moments. Show me when Lewis overtook Sainz at the Grand Prix in Hungary in 2023.
That doesn't sound like a time saving. That sounds like that would have been impossible previously, whereas now you can just say, when did Carlos lift the trophy in Silverstone a few years ago, and you've got it, right? Yeah. If you've never edited a video before, you may not understand how much time this actually takes. With everyone having the media output that they do, they needed a system that enabled them to search and find footage as quickly as possible. So with the help of AWS and a little bit of AI, they've created a tool that enables them to do just that. So that is how the technology behind Formula One's broadcast actually works, and how the cloud helps it to thrive. Thank you so much to Amazon Web Services for bringing me here to the British Grand Prix and sponsoring this video. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like down below, subscribe if you're new, and tap the bell icon to get notified every time I post a new video. See ya.